Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar on BDTI and the public administration's use of their data. And my name is Erbil. I'm from the CEF and I will try to do my best to moderate the webinar today. I see that people are still joining, but my clock shows 11:05, and I think it's a good time to start as any. Before going any further, I would like to remind our audience that it's an interactive session and you can use the internal chat to address any of the questions that you might have. We will be addressing them at the Q&A section dedicated at the very end. All participants joining the call are automatically set to mute, but if any problems, please make sure that your microphone is muted. I would like also to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared as of tomorrow on CEF Digital, and all the presentation material will also be there with the relevant links and everything that might be added to the description. This is the agenda for today. I will be introducing quickly the CEF program and our different building blocks, followed by the big data test infrastructure presentation and the onboarding process. We will be showcasing then the architecture and the next improvements to be released, followed by a quick technical demo about the platform. We will also update you on the case studies and ongoing pilots and the new additions that is going to be via our community portal and the different things on CEF Digital. And we will finish today's session with a Q&A. Today, I have the pleasure to have with us Blanca Martinez de Aragon, the BDTI Building Block Project Manager, Ariana Fravolini, who's the BDTI Pilot Request Manager, Walter Marwa, our solution architect for the platform, Casper Rutten, the BDTI Cloud Engineer, and Roberta Talarico, the communication expert for the BDTI Building Block. Before leaving the floor to the experts to talk to you about BDTI, I will do a quick introduction to CEF and our activities. Our main goal is the promotion and the adoption of common digital standards. And in order to do so, we offer technical support to public administration and SMEs. And one of our main goals is to help develop secure and interoperable digital services, and in applicable cases, providing funding to the projects that can contribute to a more connected Europe. And our main tool in order to achieve all this are the building blocks. Today, we're going to concentrate on the big data test infrastructure, allowing you to explore and experiment with big data for improved performance and decision making. But as you can see, we have a total of 10 building blocks, and they all abide by the same basic principle that are standard-based digital solutions. And for you to implement these, there are multiple ways. One is you buying a compliant interoperable solution from the market. You can also build a compliant solution with our standards, and we will be ensuring that you can test it for compliance and interoperability, or you can reuse a sample software available through CEF Digital. The main point that I would like to emphasize is that whichever solution and scenario that you choose, the CEF team will always be here to support you on your journey. The biggest advantages for you and the main benefits is that will allow you a faster, safer, and future-proof introduction to the digital market. And as I've said previously, there are some funding scenarios that you can always try and explore, and we will always be here to support you into your journey. Without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to Blanca Martinez Aragon to talk to you about the applicability for BDTI project.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I'm Blanca Martinez, and as Erbil said, I'm project manager for the BDTI. So I will present what is the BDTI, so what is the big data test infrastructure, and what are the reasons behind its development. If you can, okay. And feel free to ask any question in the chat whenever you want, and we will go through them later on. So the BDTI, or Big Data Test Infrastructure, is a cloud-based platform which was created under the Connecting Europe Facility program in order to help public administrations to start experimenting with their data. This means that the BDTI provides an environment to the users and has multiple technologies available that can be used. These are selected depending on the use case, and it enables the public administrations to create some pilot projects and then move towards more data-driven decision-making. It offers different services that can really show public administrations the value and what can you gain from your data, from their data. So what the reasons why the big data test infrastructure, if you can move just to the next slide there. So what is the reason why the big data test infrastructure was created? So the reason is because the European Commission identified a set of common problems among public administrations in Europe. First of all, public administrations tend to find it hard to start a new project related to new technologies. They either don't have the resources, the technologies, or the technical infrastructure, and they even might lack the skills. So the goal of BDTI is to facilitate the starting process and the whole process of setting up the infrastructure and starting the project, and as we are providing an environment already built. Another problem is that in many cases public administrations are not using or are not sure where to find the open data. Of course, the pilot users so the public administrations that use BDTI are allowed to use their own data for the project, but we also support them we support them and provide them at least with open data sources. And also the European Commission really wants to promote that they share their own data and make the data available to others, as we are really encourage pilot users to share information among them. And related to this, the Commission really wants to reuse the components from the pilots one another, and in general share good practices. This is something that we like to highlight to the pilot requesters, and we believe that it is key to share knowledge with each other, as it is very common that different member states or cities are facing the same problems or needs. So by looking at what others have done in the past, it can inspire them and they can win time by replicating the same use case. So, slide. So if you're questioning, is BDTI for me? The answer is yes, if you want to experiment with your data in a ready and safe environment, and if you're a public administration. So thanks to BDTI, you won't need to set up and maintain a complex environment because it is provided by the European Commission. It is also configured based on your needs after a talk with our technical team. And as you have a virtual environment, it is easily adapted to your requirements. And during the pilot, you can also always add extra tools if you need. We can also send the link with the technologies available in the chat so that you can have a look. And I think that they will be presented later on. Yeah, they will be presented later on. So the process is quite fast. Once you receive the approval, you can start validating your idea and start experimenting with your data and get advice from our experts. Later, Ariana will explain also the process and how to request this pilot. And if you go to the next slide, please, sir. So what can you do with BDTI? So BDTI supports a lot of different use cases as there are multiple technologies available and it is very flexible. The most typically used is to have descriptive analysis, which is related to making statistics and visualizations of your data. But there are many others. So for example, you can also have predictive analysis. So starting from the data that you have available and data from the past, you can predict and forecast future events or future, like you can identify some trends. And this can be further improved with time series analysis that can help understand what was the impact of past events and explore even further what could happen and correlations between different events and data. You can also use analysis of social media to improve your business analysis, or also network analysis, which can take unstructured data such as text and use network analysis to find insights and find a structure in your data. As well, you can use text analysis that you can use natural language technologies to analyze your text in order to find patterns or trends in the text. A simple thing can be just to find what is the most common word in your text. In the right, you also see COVID analysis. So this is an example of other use cases that can be done and very recently adopted. And this shows how data can help in any topic that you have. You can use data analytics. We are having a few use cases in this domain, and more details will be presented later. So next slide, I will explain other types of use cases briefly to get an idea of what can be done using the platform. So for example, you can also use a web analysis, and it can allow you to gather information from websites and structure it and analyze it. You could also do population and customer segmentation to identify common needs and profiles or characteristics from information about people. Or another completely different topic, you could also use do a use case related to Internet of Things and gather and store information coming from, for example, the sensors. And this actually can be done through another building block that the CEF, the Connecting Europe facility, provides, that it's called Context Broker. And then you can do the analysis once you have collected the data. You can store the data in the platform, and then you can do the analysis also in the platform, making sure that it's secure. And also, for example, in case that it's a moving object, you could also do route traceability and be able to track and monitor where is the object in case it's moving. And finally, another example is that you could also apply bioinformatics techniques in order to, for example, analyze generic data. So as you see, it's really broad, the types of use cases that you can do in the big data test infrastructure, and it will always depend also on your needs. We will help you define it and see which are the technologies better suited for it. So the next slide. So finally, what are the benefits that you can have from using BDTI? Some of them have already been explained previously. So as mentioned, having a ready-to-use environment where you don't need to wait for the implementation, you don't need to configure it yourself, have the infrastructure and maintain it. Also, you don't have to wait to get the money or find the money as it is provided for free for 6 months. And you also receive support and guidance on which technologies fit best to your needs from the ones that are available in BDTI. It is another benefit, it's that you can share and reuse data, and not only share your data, but also knowledge with all the other pilot requesters and from all around Europe, and also have access to insights and best practices from them. You will have access to a community portal, which will be also explained later. And sometimes we even organize meetings between the different pilot requesters on specific topics that can be interesting for all, in order to share knowledge and make sure that you make the most out of this community. So now I leave the floor to Ariana Fravolini, that will explain how to get started and more in detail the service offering from BDTI.
Thank you, Blanca, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for being here at this webinar. So yes, I'm, as Erbil said before, Ariana Fravolini, the Pilot Request Manager, and I'm going to present to you the different services that are part of the BDTI service offering because you do not get only the platform itself, but a full set of services, and also summarizing to you the process that you need to follow in order to get started and to request a pilot. So here you can see the full list of services which are included in the service offering of BDTI. These are split between the different phases of a pilot or a request. So at the beginning of a request, we collect tickets. We use a service desk, which is our single point of contact to collect the tickets where users can ask questions, so requests of clarification in order to better understand what is BDTI, or directly also submit a request to run a pilot project. Together with the service desk at the beginning of the process, we activate the service of the onboarding and stakeholder follow-up. This is a service where a dedicated team supports the requesters since the beginning throughout the whole duration of the pilot until the end of the project. During this time, what we do initially is to help the user understand better what can BDTI do, what kind of analysis can be performed, and we collect the requirements and understand together with them what is the specific direction that the project can take, and what is a specific configuration that the platform needs to have in order to satisfy the requirements. Once we have collected all these different inputs, the technical team configures the platform and so provides our core service, so the platform itself, which is a sandbox environment where users can, for a period up to 6 months, experiment with their big data, analyzing their data using the tools that the technical team has suggested to install. But during the duration of the pilot, we can also readapt the platform if for any need there is, for example, the request of adding additional data sources or adding additional tools. At the end of the pilot, we also want to collect the inputs from the different users because on one side, it helps us improve the platform itself. If there are, for example, suggestions on additional tools that can be useful for the users, but at the same time, we also, thanks to this feedback, understand how we can improve the whole service offering. Examples of how we have used these inputs from the different users are some of the services that you see in the yellow box that reports the new services that the European Commission has recently added to the to the offering. The first one is the data sources catalog. The data sources catalog is a centralized repository of reliable data sources, which are mainly open data that users can access in order to find data that can be reused for the execution of the pilots. These open data sources can be combined with the data that the public organization has collected itself in order to expand the analysis. Within this catalog, there is also the opportunity of getting information about guidelines on how to implement the different data exchange APIs. Another catalog that has very recently been deployed is the Big Data and Analytics Software Catalog. This one allows the users to search and download analytics software that can be used to implement the use cases. These tools are classified by technology areas. So for example, data discovery, data exploration, machine learning, visualization. And this can be used within a project on BDTI. It is important for the European Commission to provide this type of information not only during the pilot itself, because during the pilot there is also the technical team who really supports and suggests according to the needs what are the right tools, the best tools to be used, but also because the final aim of the Commission is to help administrations become more mature and being able to, after the the pilot project continue with a bigger project. So developing, for example, an infrastructure in-house. So having the opportunity of accessing information about these softwares is also useful in this perspective. An additional service that has been added because we saw that there was the need of having additional assistance is the data scientist assistance. This service can be activated on demand, which means that it can be used in case a public administration requires for it. So if, for example, internally there aren't enough resources or there is a lack of technical resources to work on the pilot project itself, the European Commission provides specialized resources such as data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts that can support before and during the implementation of the pilot. And last but not least, there is the BDTI community portal, which is a portal that will be explained more in detail afterwards. I just want to mention to you that this is really a good opportunity for public administrations to get in touch with one with the other and really exchange knowledge and good practices. So in the next slide, we can see what is the process that a public administration needs to follow if it wants to get started with BDTI. Essentially, once you have you have understood what can be done on this platform, and you have clarified that that you have effectively one need that can be satisfied through this infrastructure, you can reach out to us through different means, service desk or functional mailbox, and you can submit a request in order to run a pilot project. We can support you during the initial stage so that we can, together with you, really sit together and understand how we can shape the platform according to your needs. And once we have collected all the needed information, the technical team prepares an estimation of how much the pilot would cost, having understood how the platform needs to be configured, and we submit to the board of BDTI your pilot request for approval. Once received the approval, the test environment is very quickly set up. So the tools the specific tools are installed and the users are activated on the platform. And so once received, the user accesses, simply the public administration can start analyzing their big data inside the sandbox. There are some acceptance criteria, as we can see in the next slide, that that need to be met in order for us to have an approval of a pilot. So first of all, we need that the requester is a public entity. So this can be either at national, regional, or local level, but what is important is that there is a real and full engagement of a public administration, which can also cooperate with other entities, but it needs to be involved as primary stakeholder. The pilot needs to, so there needs to be a clear view of what will be the value added. We need to have a clear contact point that will be our contact point for the entire duration of the pilot. Pilot projects on BDTI can last up to 6 months. So this is also another requirement that we need to take into consideration. The type of analysis needs to be one of the ones that Blanca was explaining before, but we also need to say that the technical team constantly works on the updates of the pilot, so the list could be increased in the future. What is important is that the pilot needs to fall within the budget that the CEF has identified. This because BDTI is a platform that is provided completely for free to public administrations, so there is no need to anticipate any money or to pay anything for this platform. but it is important that the estimation of how much the pilot would cost falls within the budget provided by the CEF, which is around 50K per pilot project. It is important also that the public administration has internally adequate skilled resources, so people that can work effectively on the project and that have an adequate maturity on topics related to big data. And we try to ensure as much as possible also a geographical distribution of the different pilots so that we really provide to all administrations in Europe same opportunities, and we do not, for example, support mostly pilot projects in one single country. I will now leave the floor to my colleague Wouter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ariana. Hi, everyone. I'm Wouter Marois. I'm the solution architect for the BDTI building block and leading the technical team during the operations of the platform. And within this webinar, I will give a brief overview of what is available in BDTI from an architectural perspective, and we'll deep dive a bit into the different components that are available. Next slide, please. So I always start with the general BDTI service offering, and this is the technical offering that you have within BDTI. And you can mainly see three pillars, which are data visualization, data query and processing, and data storage. So based on these three pillars, there are multiple components available that are belonging to one pillar or encompassing more pillars. And at the downside, you see security and governance, which is a down layer where we support infrastructure security, identity and access management, logging and monitor, and data protection. So this would be the full view of what we have available. So you can see we have data lake solutions, for example, big data analytics, database solutions, AI solutions, search analytics, and analytic workbenches. And during the next slides, I will present each building block, each component, and give some more explanation on why you should use it and how it is available within the platform. Next slide, please. So let's start with the analytic workbench. So an analytic workbench is an environment for BDTI users where they can start their analysis. Basically, they will have a machine available to them with enough computing power for most statistical data analysis. And these compute machines have tools available such as Jupyter Notebooks, RStudio, NAM Analytic Platform, and many Python libraries and R packages that they can use for their analysis. So it's really the starting point. The analytic workbench will then integrate with the other components of BDTI, such that data can be loaded from storage mechanisms, from databases into the analytic workbench, such that you can use a Jupyter Notebook, for example, to start your analysis. Next slide, please. Then the first storage mechanism that you have is a data lake solution. The data lake solution is based on object storage. This is implemented with Amazon S3. And the purpose of this data lake is to store the first data that you have that you want to analyze within BDTI. This can be CSV files, these can be XML files, this also can be video files or image files. So it doesn't really matter what kind of file you want to analyze or what you want to use for processing. You can initially upload it to the data lake, and from there on you can choose how you want to further process this data. So it's really the landing zone of the platform for ingesting data sources. As also with the other components, the data lake solution is directly integrated with the analytic workbench, so you can directly load data from the analytic workbench that is stored within the data lake. Next slide, please. Then we have the big data analytics solutions. This is the more compute heavy solution that we have, which is based on the Hadoop ecosystem and implemented with Amazon EMR. So This solution provides you the ability to perform distributed processing on large amounts of data. So not only on millions of rows, but really on billions of rows. And it's entirely based on the Hadoop ecosystem. So at the down layer, you have the Hadoop storage file system or the object storage. On top of this, you have Spark and Hive that you can use to ingest data in memory in a distributed fashion, and then process this data as fit for your use case, and eventually forward this data back into another storage solution. Of course, if you're not familiar with the Hadoop ecosystem, during the BDTI pilot, we also have an advising role. So we also help pilot users with using the platform, using Spark technology, using Hive technology, and to provide them with a solution that works for their pilot. Next slide, please. Then we had the data lake solution. Then we had an Hadoop ecosystem. We also have database solutions, which are the most familiar solutions, I would say, in the industry for storing data. And we have two main technologies. So at the left side, you see the relational database, and on the left side, you see the document store. The relational database is the more standard database, where you will have a SQL schema on top of your data. You will be able to use SQL queries to analyze what's inside the database. And with the document store, it's a NoSQL paradigm, where you don't have a schema enforced on your data, where you more or less will be querying documents, and where you will be querying the content of documents. Each has their own advantages and disadvantages, and we are also there to help you with choosing the right component for your solution, such that you can get the most out of the platform. Next slide, please. We also have search analytics solutions, which is based on the Elasticsearch and Lucene search engine. And this solution is used best for text-based search. So, for example, you have millions of documents which are text-based documents, and you want to search and you want to search what document has this specific text pattern in the body. Then for these types of scenarios, Elasticsearch and Kibana are a very good fit. Elasticsearch does not only come with a search engine, it also comes with Kibana, which is a visual dashboard, which is very, very popular in the BI world for visualizing the results or the queries that you have performed on Elasticsearch. We also see that this combination, this stack is also used with other data storages, such as Postgres or a MySQL database, where Kibana will be used to visualize the content inside Postgres or MySQL. Next slide, please. Then last but not least, recently we added an AI solution to the platform. And as an AI solution, we presented the machine learning platform, which is based on H2O.ai. And the machine learning platform is basically a large compute cluster that you can use for executing machine learning algorithms. So the more popular frameworks such as Scikit or PyTorch or Keras TensorFlow are used for machine learning, and machine learning platform H2O.ai also implemented the same algorithms as the previously mentioned libraries implement. So supervised, unsupervised modeling is possible. You can perform model evaluation and selection. All this together to create a machine learning model on top of the data that you have to make predictions and to give more insights in your data. The good thing about the machine learning platform is that it is tightly integrated with the other BDTI components. So it's very easy to load data from S3, from HDFS, process it in H2O.ai, and then integrate it again, for example, with Spark or with Hive. So this was also the reasoning why H2O.ai was implemented within the BDTI platform. Next slide, please. Then the BDTI security and governance, although the pilots are experimental pilots and are meant to prove certain hypotheses that you have with your data, it's still a secured and governed environment. So we have an operational team which is responsible for operating the environment, and we take care of the infrastructure security, identity and access management, logging and monitoring, and data protection. So this really allows you to focus on your core business, on your core analysis that you want to perform, on the experiments that you want to execute, and to not worry about the underlying operations that are also necessary in such an environment. So this is also a responsibility that BDTI is taking fully. Next slide, please. Now I will give you a short technical demo about the platform, and to give some context on this demo, half a year ago we integrated with Context Broker, which is a platform that ingests multiple events, for example, from IoT sources, and then distributes it again to different ingestors. And the BDTI platform was integrated with Context Broker to store the data that is being distributed by Context Broker and to provide this data for analysis. So what we will do here in the demo is load data from Context Broker. It will be stored in object storage and then perform an analysis with Jupyter, which is launched on an analytic workbench. So Erbil, would it be able to give me control of the screen, or?
I just did.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, you have the hand.
Thank you very much. Okay. Please let me know if you can see the screen.
Content is there.
Okay, perfect.
Weather analysis V3.
Okay, perfect. So let's start. So what you see here is a Jupyter notebook, and a Jupyter notebook is used to perform analysis on to perform different kinds of analysis. It's a very generic. It's a very generic framework where you can use programming languages such as Python, Scala, or R to perform your analysis. The Jupyter notebooks come together with the analytic workbench. And I would say it's your starting point for doing your analysis. We will load data from the object storage from S3, which contains the data from Context Broker, and perform a very simple analysis on top of this. So how Jupyter Notebook works is within a notebook, you perform or you create different programming snippets, and then you can deliver this notebook as a report, or you can embed different images or results or tables on top of this report. But it's a real, it's a live report of what you are doing in your analysis, and it makes it easier to understand where your analysis is coming from programmatically, and what the purpose of your analysis was. So the first step, what we will do is load the data that is stored in S3, and in this scenario, it's weather data. So the first programming snippet is basically loading some data. Okay, and we can execute this. Let's say it takes a couple of seconds to launch the program that will ingest the data, and afterwards the data will be loaded in Jupyter, and then we can check what's inside and perform our descriptive analysis. Okay, I see that the job has been completed. The first thing that we will do is check what the schema is of this data. It will recognize the format, and it will tell us what attributes that are available in this data. So I just printed the schema, and we see that we have multiple attributes. We have an address, data provider, entity ID, location, receive time, source, station code, station name, temperature, wind direction. Okay, so basically what this data point is, each point is an observation from a weather station, which comes with the temperature, the wind direction, the station name, the station code, where it's coming from, and so on. And based on the attributes that we see here, we will perform the analysis. So perhaps a first idea would be to count how much data that we actually have sitting in this repository. Can do this with a simple count. Again, if it's a lot of data, it can take some seconds to load. So we have 26,515 records. And perhaps as a next step, what we can do is we can select the station name, group them by station name, and check how many stations that you have for each name. Or at least, I mean, how many entries you have for each station name. So it's very similar to a SQL query, where you do a select, a group by, and a count, but this is now being performed programmatically, such that you can use Python to structure your approach. So we see that we have 3 stations, Barcelona Center, Gijón Center, and Madrid Center, and they have each an equal amount of weather observations, so 8,839 each. Now the next step that we can do is a further analysis. So we can select the station name and we can group by station name again, but instead of counting how much entries or how many data we have per station, we will take the average of each temperature and then show what the result is. So here we can see it's a very simple calculation. The average temperature of Barcelona Center is 19 degrees, Gijón 15, Madrid Center 15, at least average temperature that was available in the data that we have stored. Now we can visualize what you have seen. This snippet is basically to reformat the data a bit such that we can order the data based on the date and such that we can create a nice view or graph of the result. So this is more, let's say, a data transformation that we are performing here, such that we can have a nice overview of the dates and timestamps of each date. Okay, so now that we transform the data, what we will do now is create a view on this by creating a graph. And Jupyter Hub comes with additional tools to perform visualization. For example, you can use Matplotlib to visualize, but you can also use one of the embedded tools, such you can see here. So this is a table view, but what we want to see really is, for example, a visualization. Let's select the line option. And now we can see, for example, okay, July, we had a higher average temperature than November and January, which I think makes a lot of sense. But this was really to give you a very simple example on how an analysis looks like within Jupyter and within BDTI. But of course, the approach that you define here can be much more complex, and yeah, in most situations is much more complex. And also, we have seen this in previous pilots. You can go as far as you want with this because you have the full flexibility of the program languages available and the statistical analysis libraries. Okay, so I hope you had a good if you had an initial understanding of what a Jupyter Notebook is and how you can use this within BDTI. And now I will continue the presentation with giving an overview of what pilots we already did on BDTI.
Thank you very much, Mauter. I will just reshare the slides.
Okay. I'm sorry, Erbil, perhaps could you go to the previous slide to give an introduction? Thank you very much. So I'm going to explain a bit about the case studies that we had of the ongoing pilots, and also my colleague Casper Rutten, a cloud engineer in our team, will present one of these pilots. Slide, please. So case study 1, the digital public procurement in Norway. So here we work together with Difi, and Difi is the agency for public management and e-government in Norway. They are actually responsible for the digitalization of the e-procurement process in Norway. So Norway was very advanced in was already very advanced in their e-procurement process, and they already collected e-procurement data since 2012 fully digitally, but now they have multiple data sets and multiple repositories available with this data, and now they want to perform an analysis on this. And that's why they came to BDTI to perform an initial pilot where they can experiment with the different tools available and to see what approach they could use in their process. So as you can see on the timeline, 2019, 2020, they created a data lake architecture. I will show that in a minute. And in 2020, they started the data lake pilot on BDTI. And with this pilot, they hope to with experience that they obtained with BDTI, they hope to create a new tender for their official platform, for their official operational platform, for doing the analysis on their e-procurement data. So BDTI is helping them leveraging a new case for their government. Next slide, please. Here we can see the technical architecture that DV gave us in the beginning. So we started from this, and together with them, we defined a scope for within BDTI, and we translated this into the components that we have available in BDTI. And after the discussions, we set up the environment for them, and currently they are still operating actually. And perhaps I can give you a small explanation on how the architecture works. So they have e-procurement data as a source at many locations in Norway, and they want to move their data into a sort of ETL pipeline, but an ETL pipeline for large amounts of data. And this ETL pipeline goes through Private Cloud 1, Private Cloud 2, and the functionalities that are being operated here are mainly data transformations and anonymization of data, enhancing the data, adding more metadata to it. And at the end of the ETL pipeline, they want to provide a data lake with prepared data for analysis that they will analyze in Private Cloud 3. So this to give you an idea what kind of use case or pilot you can use in BDTI. Next slide, please. And here I will give the floor to Casper, and Casper will give some more explanation on the convalescent plasma database.
Okay, thank you, Wouter. And hi, everybody. Thank you for attending. Casper Rutte speaking, cloud engineer for BDTI. So a second pilot that we're currently running on BDTI is the convalescent plasma database, which is a joint venture with EBA, DigiSante, DigiDigit, Connect, and a little bit of assistance from DigiCom. And really, this pilot was created to meet the ad hoc need that that Europe and the EBA recognized that across Europe there was a significant issue getting the donation and logging of all different COVID antibody containing plasma. So what BDTI provided is in a really short term, we created a solution using EU survey to ingest blood donation data collected in blood establishments all throughout Europe. And after the initial setup with the EU survey, it was decided that the scope should be increased and the solution should be a bit more tailored to the problem. So we created a website, a tool for all the blood establishments in Europe to come and register their donations and patient transfusions of antibody containing plasma. So the process you can see on the right, the COVID-19 patient recovers and therefore has antibodies, and they will donate blood containing these antibodies, which will then be used either in research or for treating patients with COVID. And really, BDTI solves the issue of getting a centralized repository for all this data. As you can see, the adoption is going quite well. There's more than 90 blood establishments in Europe currently enrolled in the program, with more than 4,000 plasma donations registered. This number is steadily rising, especially on the blood establishment side and the donation side. So what BDTI is doing specifically, as I mentioned already, we had the ready-to-use virtual environment, which we extended quite a bit at the demand of EBA and DG Sante with a number of custom-built tools, such as the front-end website. Yeah, next slide, please. Bit of a recap slide. So we're up to 94 blood establishments in 20 countries, with 42 of them already registered and actively entering donations into the database. There's a bit of a schema on the right that shows a number of things that I might want to draw your attention to. For example, in the second column, anonymization. This is one of these things that in the heat of the moment, nobody really wants to take care of when a problem is there and a solution needs to be met. But obviously, this is something at BDTI we are adept and experienced at dealing with. So that's one of these pillars that we can take care of rather well. And then there's the database layer, which in this case is a standard PostgreSQL. And then on the right side is a bit the future for the project. Now that we have this data there and coming in, we will be providing the more standard BDTI research avenues and data analytics and data science avenues in the future. Next slide, please. I'll give it back to Wouter here. You're muted.
Thank you, Casper. So we deep dived a bit into two pilots on BDTI, but there is much more. We had over the last 2 years there were many pilots onboarded on BDTI, and here just as a recap of some previous pilots, such as the Conselleria de Sanitat and the Municipality of Milan and the City of Florence. So these were all municipalities that had their own use case, that had their own needs for a pilot. They came to BDTI. We discussed together an approach or a solution that they could leverage to prove their hypothesis, and each one of them successfully onboarded on BDTI, is running their pilot still, and are all still leveraging the capabilities that BDTI is bringing. Next slide, please. And with this, I want to give the floor to Roberto Tallarico.
Thank you, Wouter. Roberta will be presenting now. I'll leave the floor to her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello to everybody. Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm Roberta Tallarico, communication expert for the BDTI building block. And I'm going to share with you the purpose, main goals, and way to register to and become member of the BDTI community. So going to the next slide, please. So why the BDTI community portal? It is for building a BDTI community where all the members can develop and share the big data knowledge and artifacts such as insights and outcomes on the pilots that we have heard something, and about new technologies, use cases, methodologies. And the BDTI community portal provides also a forum where the public administration can contribute with ideas, launch proposals, and also create synergies, enlarging their own network and collaboration opportunities. Last but not least, the members can also access to all the news and the events related to BDTI and in general to the area of big data. So with regard to the main goals, next slide, please. So first, providing
a space to the BDTI stakeholder where they can participate and collaborate in a unique space and becoming key actors in the European big data ecosystem. Second, allowing the BDTI stakeholder to develop, share knowledge, discuss, and be active contributors to the BDTI future shaping. And that one is stimulating discussion and sharing of practices and opportunities in order to create sound network of contacts and synergies and possible synergies. So how it is possible to access to the community portal, so to become member. Next slide, please. First of all, you need a new login account. And regarding the access, you will find the dedicated button on the BDTI home web page where you can register, become member, and start participating and sharing and all what the community portal allows. So the invitation is to join as soon as possible. To become member of this community from this very beginning of the community portal. And from our side, we will provide you with all the inputs and events, occasion to interact and be active in this big data field and in general digital ecosystem. So I will stop here and it's question and answer time. So I leave the floor again to Herbie.
Thank you very much, Roberta. This concludes the overall presentation that we prepared for you today. So we will have a Q&A as promised at the very beginning. So I'm going to share on the screen a link, an access code that will allow you to go to the Menti platform. But afterwards, we're going to share with you the screen and we will be able to see and measure the different answers, questions that are raised. So I invite you to please to go to the link and enter the login code. Thank you, Ariana. I was just about to also copy. Thank you. I will keep the screen as such for a while. Then I will switch to my colleague Martino. Perfect. Thank you very much, Martino.
Okay. So thank you, Erbil. So before going to the question and answer sessions where we would like to answer to all the different questions that you have. Okay, someone has already started. We have prepared a couple of questions that we would like to ask you in order to understand what would be your preference in terms of what kind of analysis you would like to you would be interested in. There is the opportunity on the Menti tool to insert multiple answers, so you can create a kind of sequence of your preferred answers, so that you can share with us what would be the types of analysis most in your interest. I warmly encourage to share with us your replies, because this will help us in improving the platform and also understanding what's the main interest, let's say, on the market, even if this is a small a restricted group of people who is replying, obviously. Okay, so for the moment we have 5 people who have already replied, but I would like to give 1 minute more for the others to complete as well. I would say that this is more or less a trend that we have been seeing also during the past webinars. So predictive, time series, and descriptive analysis are the ones that appear the preferred ones within the audience. There is also, if no one else is answering, I think we can move to the next slide. There is also another set of types of analysis that can be voted. So we have the second part that Blanca was presenting before, but I see that, okay. So in this case, you can choose between web analysis, IoT, smart city security, population, customer segmentation, image processing, route traceability, and bioinformatics. Also in this case, if there are multiple options, you can create a sequence of answers. So thank you very much for sharing your answers. Maybe someone is still voting. IoT and smart city and web analysis are effectively those that that usually appear in the first position. Just see if someone is still replying, and then we can move to the next slide. Okay, I think it will remain with this order. So thank you very much for who has replied. This other question is really, and the next one as well, are really useful for us to understand what would be the main drivers for you to choose to apply for BDTI. So you can either select that your organization is already collecting big data, but you don't yet have a platform to analyze them, or you would like your organization to become more data-driven and to take data-driven decisions. You would like to do a project like this one with a dedicated team that can support you, or you want to give it a try since you know that BDTI is free, so you would like to understand if it makes sense to, after the pilot project, invest in a bigger project in order to effectively set up a proper infrastructure. Or you are tackling a new use case and would like to know, to understand better if BDTI could help. Also, in this case, you should be able to select multiple options in case multiple are effectively valid for you. We have just 2 people who have replied. Don't be shy. We don't collect your names. It's really to help us understanding the reasons behind a possible application. Okay. In case the reason behind possible application is not listed here, if you want, you can also share it afterwards in the Q&A session. So just to let us know. Okay, so thank you. In the next and final question, we would like to understand from you why instead you would not apply for BDTI. So if there is any reason that would prevent you to apply. And this is useful for us because if there is something that maybe has not been clearly explained or has not was not so clear during the presentation, we can also go through it in the next Q&A section. Okay, so if we can please move to the final slide. Why would you not apply for BDTI? Or what would you prevent actually to apply? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So what are the challenges that might prevent you from applying for BDTI? So for example, you work for a private entity and you believe it could be difficult to establish a partnership with a public organization. So you think you do not have any opportunity or it's difficult to proceed. Or you work for a university and same reason you find it difficult to establish a partnership with a public organization. Or even your organization already collects big data, but you do not have data scientists resources internally, so you have a lack of resources. You are not sure if the data on BDTI are managed in a secure and private way. Or you are worried that you could incur in unforeseen costs. Or even you feel that you need additional services or additional information before being able to apply. Or it seems difficult to apply in terms of, let's say, a process that you need to follow. Okay, topic about security is always very, very hot, let's say. Let's see if someone else is still replying. Okay, so for the moment, it seems that the security, the topic about security and the fact that you're not sure if the data are managed in a private way is the most preferred one. But even someone in the audience is working for a university and does not know if it would be possible to establish a partnership with a public entity. Or you lack in data scientist resources, or it seems difficult to apply. Okay, these are the most selected options. Okay, maybe we can just quickly answer to this to these concerns before going to a Q&A session. So Wouter, maybe I know that you already presented the section, the part about the security, but maybe to the people who are still worried about the security and privacy of the data. If there is something else that can be shared with them.
Yes, sure, of course. So BDTI itself is a platform that is hosted on AWS. So we are leveraging the cloud capabilities that Amazon Web Services is giving us. But Amazon Web Services does not have access to the BDTI platform. So the data on BDTI platform is managed by the operational team of BDTI, and there the standard security procedures are being handled. I'm thinking about the infrastructure security itself, the data protection, data is encrypted in transit and at rest, identity and access management. These are all components that are governed by the operational team. So the only entities or parties that have access to data within BDTI is the BDTI operational team and, of course, the BDTI users themselves. All pilots are separated within the platform, so only BDTI users can access their own platform, and this data the data from a pilot is also only accessible by the BDTI users that are associated to this pilot. Other than that, regarding backups, auto-recovery and availability, these are also topics that are being handled by the operational team of BDTI. So this is really a layer that is actively managed by BDTI without any interference of any external provider. So Amazon Web Services is not interfering here. I'm not sure if there are any specific questions regarding this topic. I'm really happy to answer any questions.
And I would like to add that BDTI is hosted in an account from Amazon from the European Commission, and the European Commission has a contract with AWS to guarantee specific security measures. And for example, the data just under really specific circumstances and validation from our side cannot leave Europe.
Thank you very much to both of you. Maybe for the next question about the fact of working for an academy, I will let Roberta provide some further information on this point.
Yeah, thank you, Arianna. So it's really important for BDTI to have these interests from the academic and the university environments, because it works better if there are synergies also with that kind of field. So the suggestion would be to, in your interaction with public administration, to talk about the BDTI opportunity and support public administration in building pilot and request for the BDTI development. In addition, you can continue as university to follow the BDTI activities also by registering to the community portal and interacting on that space with the public administration with whom you can collaborate in the BDTI framework. And also in my case, if there are very specific questions, glad to answer.
Thank you, Roberta. About very quickly the next concern. As said before, within the service offering of BDTI, if you're lacking in adequate resources internally, this should not stop you to submit a request, because as said, there is a dedicated service. So there is this data scientist assistance which can be activated, and dedicated personnel can be provided to support the pilot execution if internally you feel that you need additional support to the one than the one that is already provided by the technical team. And for what concerns the fact that it could seem difficult to apply, just drop us a line if you want. We can provide you a tutorial, but in any case, on the website of CEF BDTI, there is a button that redirects you to the service desk, and there you simply need to open a ticket. So just create an EU login so that you can open a ticket, and then you can submit a request, and we will be more than happy to guide you during the rest of the journey. We have a couple of minutes left, and I would like to leave the floor to you. If you have any questions, there is a page on the Menti space where you can effectively type the questions that you have, and we will be more than pleased to answer them real time. There was a question before that was shared on the chat that was asking what happens when a project extends to more than 6 months. So if you have, for example, a need of having a pilot project for more than 6 months. So in this case, considering that, as we said before, one of the acceptance criteria to be approved, let's say to have the pilot approved, is that it needs to last up to 6 months. What we can do is certainly, first of all, understand together with you if there is a duration. So if the duration of the pilot is dependent to specific reasons, because in this case we can effectively start with a pilot project of 6 months, reshape a little bit the use case, supporting you in this, understand which could be the data sets that you can use for an initial stage of the pilot. And then we can guide you and support you after the pilot execution. If you want to migrate, for example, your data in a production environment, we can provide you recommendations of how to do that. Consider that the, let's say, limitation of 6 months or period of 6 months is set on one side because it was estimated that a pilot project lasting 6 months has a specific cost that the CEF is available to support and to pay for. And at the same time, we also need to ensure that the technical team and the dedicated resources can effectively follow all the different pilots. So we cannot have, for example, just 3 pilots that last 2 years, and then we do not have the resources to support new pilots that request to use the platform themselves. But please, for any request, you will find also a request of clarification. You will find the functional mailbox email address at the end of the presentation, and we will be pleased to reply to all your questions if you do not have any in this moment. Okay, so yes, Erbil, I see that the audience has no questions to share immediately.
Seems so. So I will take back just the presentation for a second to show the links on space. But there was also a question on where the info for this and other webinar that our audience already participated. The answer is it will be online, the recording and the slide deck with all the relevant information regarding the links that you might be finding interesting, and all the content that was shared here will be made available on the dedicated webinar page. It will be done by tomorrow. So as Ariana suggested, if any questions might arise from there, you can drop us a line on the email address that's shown here or via the service desk. And regarding the different social media channels, I encourage everyone to follow us so we can keep you updated on the different content that we're making available on a regular basis. And as Roberta highlighted very well, the community portal that is now available, accessible via the CEF Digital page. We're really looking forward to having you interact with us directly through this channel as well, coming months to come. I think we can conclude the webinar right now. I would like to thank all the speakers and, of course, our audience to joining us for this webinar and making this successful event. We hope that the information that's provided today is interesting, and we are really much looking forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you very much, everyone, and wishing you a very pleasant day. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you and have a nice afternoon.
Thank
Have a
you to
nice day.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.